Corrupt judge insults JD Vance in court. Moments later, he's arrested. Hello everyone. Welcome to Stories TH channel. In today's video, we will witness an intense confrontation between JD Vance and the corrupt Judge Marshall Davis in the courtroom. You won't believe what happens next. Don't forget to like and subscribe to Stories TH channel to not miss out on other exciting videos. In a gripping courtroom drama, a corrupt judge, Judge Marshall Davis, initially believed he could abuse his authority without consequence. Known for his harsh and increasingly erratic behavior, Davis had a reputation for targeting conservative figures with bias, using his position to silence anyone who dared challenge him. However, he didn't anticipate the presence of JD Vance, a vice president known for his calm and respectful demeanor, who would not let this unjust treatment slide. What began as a normal day in a federal courthouse would soon become a defining moment in American justice. From the very start of the proceedings, Judge Davis made it clear he held a personal animosity against Vance and conservatives in general. As Vance entered the courtroom, the judge greeted him with open disdain, quickly asserting that in his court, Vance's position meant nothing. The tension grew as the judge interrupted the defense attorney's opening statement, mocking the very nature of the case. Davis's words dripped with contempt as he belittled the defense's arguments and refused to entertain the possibility that the defendant's charitable contributions had any merit. But JD Vance remained composed, sticking to the facts and calmly responding to the judge's provocations. His steady presence only seemed to escalate Davis's fury. The judge's increasingly erratic behavior and hostile actions became more transparent to the courtroom, especially as he began making rulings based on personal bias rather than the law. For instance, when Vance presented documented evidence of the defendant's charitable work, Davis went into an explosive tirade, dismissing the evidence without cause. His refusal to accept facts revealed more about his personal agenda than the case at hand. The confrontation took a shocking turn when Vance, with quiet precision, exposed the judge's corruption. Vance referenced documents linking Davis to offshore accounts and payments from activist groups, suggesting that these financial transactions influenced his judicial decisions. At this moment, the facade of the judge's authority began to crumble. He lost control, not only of the courtroom, but also of his own composure. In a desperate attempt to maintain power, Davis threatened Vance with contempt and even ordered his arrest. But Vance remained unshaken, continuing to present evidence that exposed the judge's misconduct. The turning point came when Vance revealed that the judge had been involved in multiple corrupt dealings, including a conspiracy with other judges who had ruled in favor of a controversial group after receiving substantial financial contributions. The weight of these revelations sent shockwaves through the courtroom, and even the judge's own staff began to speak out about the pressure and threats they had faced. In a final, dramatic moment, FBI agents stormed the courtroom, announcing that Judge Davis's actions were now under federal investigation. As agents moved to arrest Davis, his attempt to defend his actions only revealed the full extent of his corruption. The courtroom fell into stunned silence as the truth was revealed. What was meant to be a trial for another defendant had turned into a dramatic exposé of judicial corruption at the highest levels. Ultimately, the story underscores a powerful message. The pursuit of justice is not always an easy battle, but it is one that must be fought. JD Vance's unwavering stand for truth and accountability in the face of overwhelming corruption demonstrated the importance of standing up against those who use their power for personal gain. This confrontation became a defining moment, not only for the case at hand, but also for the integrity of the justice system itself. In a powerful moment that highlighted the values of integrity and justice, JD Vance stood up to a corrupt judge, Marshall Davis, whose bias and misconduct were on full display in the courtroom. Judge Davis, a federal judge known for his increasingly erratic behavior and personal vendettas against conservative figures, had no patience for Vance, a vice president, and his team. Davis's conduct was harsh and unprofessional from the very beginning of the trial, showing disdain for Vance's position and dismissing important evidence with scorn. Judge Davis, feeling untouchable in his courtroom, attempted to belittle and humiliate Vance, interrupting his testimony and questioning his credibility. But Vance remained composed, responding calmly and respectfully to each of the judge's provocations. The situation escalated when Davis, clearly threatened by the evidence Vance presented, lost control of his temper. He aggressively dismissed documents showing the defendant's charitable contributions and became increasingly erratic as the trial proceeded, even threatening to have Vance arrested for contempt of court. It became apparent that Judge Davis's bias was more than just a matter of personal disdain for Vance's political affiliations. It was a display of corruption, one that Vance was determined to expose. Vance, unwavering in his commitment to truth and fairness, began revealing evidence of the judge's own illicit dealings. He presented documents showing that Davis had received payments from offshore accounts and had been involved in unethical relationships with activist groups, influencing his judicial decisions. The turning point came when Vance boldly called out Davis for his corruption, revealing that Davis had been accepting bribes and favoring certain groups in exchange for favorable rulings. Vance's calm, steady demeanor contrasted sharply with Davis's frantic and panicked reactions, making it clear that the judge was guilty of using his authority for personal gain. The climax of this dramatic courtroom battle arrived when federal agents entered the scene, announcing that Davis was under investigation. The judge's authority evaporated as he was led away in handcuffs, a symbol of justice prevailing over corruption. This moment was a clear message that no one, no matter how powerful, is above the law. JD Vance's actions served as a reminder that standing up for truth and justice is not just necessary. It's imperative to preserve the integrity of our judicial system. In a dramatic and pivotal moment in the courtroom, JD Vance exposed the corruption of a federal judge, Marshall Davis, whose behavior had become increasingly hostile and erratic, particularly when it came to conservative figures. Judge Davis, known for his harsh and biased treatment of defendants, thought he was untouchable, but he underestimated the power of truth and accountability. The day began like any other in the courthouse, with Judge Davis arriving in a foul mood. His reputation for mistreating those in his court was well known, but it had recently escalated, especially when dealing with political figures he disagreed with. JD Vance, a vice president, entered the court calmly and respectfully, only to find himself subjected to Davis's blatant disdain. The judge made it clear from the start that he would not tolerate any political theatrics or challenges to his authority. His attitude was one of superiority, mocking Vance's presence in the courtroom and treating him with contempt. As the trial proceeded, Judge Davis's behavior became more unprofessional and erratic. When Vance began presenting important evidence regarding the defendant's charitable contributions, Davis immediately dismissed it without any legal justification. He even went so far as to question Vance's credibility, insinuating that his position in Washington gave him an unfair advantage. The judge's outbursts grew more frequent, his tone sharper, and his attacks on Vance more personal. However, JD Vance remained calm and composed throughout the ordeal, refusing to be intimidated by Davis's aggressive tactics. Instead, he began to expose the judge's own corruption. Vance presented documents that revealed a disturbing pattern of misconduct on the part of Judge Davis, including payments from offshore accounts and unethical ties to activist groups. Vance's ability to stay composed in the face of Davis's hostility only seemed to further enrage the judge, whose authority began to unravel as Vance continued to bring forth evidence. The tipping point came when Vance directly accused Davis of using his judicial power for personal gain. He revealed that Davis had been accepting bribes and making biased rulings in exchange for political favors. The courtroom fell into stunned silence as Davis's true nature was revealed. His frantic attempts to regain control only further exposed his guilt, and Vance's unwavering pursuit of justice left no room for doubt about the judge's corruption. As the situation escalated, federal agents arrived, announcing that Judge Davis was under investigation. The judge, who had once ruled with arrogance and impunity, was now being arrested for his actions. The courtroom was filled with a sense of victory and justice as Davis was led away in handcuffs. Vance's efforts had ensured that the truth had prevailed and a corrupt system had been brought to light. This moment in the courtroom served as a powerful reminder that no one, no matter how powerful or influential, is above the law. JD Vance's courage and determination to expose the truth brought accountability to a broken system, and his actions highlighted the importance of standing up for what is right, no matter the cost. In a stunning display of courage and integrity, JD Vance took a stand against the corruption of Judge Marshall Davis, a federal judge who had grown increasingly hostile and biased against conservative figures. The courtroom drama unfolded in a way no one expected, with Vance's calm, yet determined demeanor challenging the judge's authoritarian control and ultimately revealing a pattern of corruption that had been festering for years. The day began with Judge Davis, known for his foul temper and unpredictable behavior, storming into the courtroom, already irritated. He immediately set a hostile tone by barking orders at his staff and making threats of contempt charges against anyone who dared to cross him. His reputation for mistreating those in his court was well established, but it had recently taken a more personal and erratic turn, especially in cases involving conservative defendants. Davis had made it clear that his courtroom was a place where his authority was absolute, and he was willing to use it to attack those he deemed unworthy. JD Vance, a calm and composed vice president, entered the courtroom with quiet dignity. He acknowledged the court's staff respectfully and prepared to testify, understanding that the stakes were high. But from the moment he stepped into the courtroom, it was clear that Judge Davis had already made up his mind. With open disdain, Davis treated Vance as little more than a political pawn and sought to undermine his testimony at every turn. He mocked Vance's presence in the courtroom, dismissing his role as a conservative figure, and even made personal jabs at his credibility. Despite the judge's increasing hostility, Vance remained poised and professional, refusing to rise to the bait. As the trial progressed, Davis's behavior became even more erratic. He interrupted the defense attorney's opening statement, cutting him off with rude and dismissive comments. When Vance began presenting key evidence regarding the defendant's charitable contributions, Davis outright rejected it, deeming it irrelevant without any legal basis. It became increasingly apparent that Davis was not interested in justice or fairness. He was using his position to push a personal agenda and punish those he disagreed with. But JD Vance's calm demeanor, combined with his sharp legal acumen, was beginning to have an effect. Rather than backing down, he continued to challenge the judge's rulings with quiet confidence, providing solid evidence and arguments to support his position. Vance's decision to speak truthfully and remain composed in the face of the judge's irrationality only seemed to enrage Davis further. The judge became increasingly defensive and erratic, and his ability to maintain control of the situation began to unravel. Vance's breakthrough came when he directly confronted Davis about his personal involvement in corrupt activities. He revealed that Judge Davis had been accepting offshore payments, likely in exchange for favorable rulings. He also brought to light Davis's secretive meetings with activist groups and his attempts to silence conservative voices in the courtroom. The judge, now visibly shaken and panicked, tried to deny the accusations, but his frantic behavior only further exposed his guilt. In a desperate attempt to maintain control, Davis ordered Vance's arrest for contempt, but it was clear that the balance of power had already shifted. Just as Davis's threats escalated, federal agents arrived on the scene, announcing that an investigation had been launched into his corrupt activities. The once unassailable judge was taken away in handcuffs, his reputation destroyed. JD Vance's courageous actions had exposed a system of corruption that had been allowed to thrive for far too long. His determination to seek justice had not only led to the downfall of a corrupt judge, but also highlighted the need for accountability and integrity in the legal system. The courtroom scene became a powerful symbol of what happens when individuals refuse to accept injustice and stand up for what is right. JD Vance's courage to challenge Judge Davis, even when faced with overwhelming hostility and threats, served as a reminder that the truth will ultimately prevail, and no one, no matter their position or power, is above the law. In an unexpected turn of events, JD Vance's quiet yet powerful stand against a corrupt federal judge, Marshall Davis, captivated the courtroom and exposed the systemic abuses of power that had been going unchecked for years. What started as a routine courtroom encounter turned into a confrontation that would shake the legal system to its core. The once untouchable Judge Davis, known for his overbearing and biased rulings, was unmasked for his corruption when Vance, with unshakable composure, refused to back down and allowed the truth to prevail. The day began with Judge Davis already on edge. His explosive temper had made him infamous in the courtroom, but on this particular day, his mood seemed to be on the brink of unraveling. He barked orders at his staff, threatened contempt charges for the slightest infraction, and made it clear from the outset that he had no interest in upholding fairness or justice. It wasn't the first time Davis had shown hostility toward conservative figures, but what was about to unfold would expose the extent of his bias and personal vendetta. As JD Vance, a calm and dignified witness, entered the courtroom, it was clear the judge had already made his mind up. Davis wasted no time in mocking Vance, belittling his position, and expressing his disdain for him as a conservative puppet. Vance, who had come to testify as a witness, did not rise to the bait. He remained calm, polite, and composed, despite the judge's constant interruptions and attempts to provoke him. Davis, growing increasingly frustrated with Vance's demeanor, became more erratic. He dismissed relevant evidence, belittled the defense team, and made personal attacks on Vance's character. But Vance, ever the professional, maintained his focus on the facts, which only seemed to further enrage the judge. At this point, it was clear that the judge was no longer simply enforcing the law. He was letting his personal biases cloud his judgment. However, JD Vance's determination to seek justice was unshaken. He calmly continued to present his evidence, which included key documents regarding the defendant's charitable contributions. When Davis tried to dismiss these records without grounds, Vance's response was clear and firm, calling out the judge's bias and questioning his rulings. Davis, sensing his control slipping away, began to panic. His usual confidence was replaced with desperation as he attempted to shut down Vance's line of questioning, but Vance's steady, measured response cut through the chaos. The moment of truth came when Vance introduced documents showing suspicious offshore accounts linked to the judge, directly tying Davis to a pattern of corrupt activity. As Vance continued to press the judge, Davis's composure completely crumbled. The judge, his face pale with fear, lashed out, accusing Vance of planting evidence and even accusing him of being part of a larger conspiracy. But it was too late. Vance had already exposed the judge's unlawful actions with undeniable evidence. At this point, federal agents arrived, confirming that an investigation had been initiated into Judge Davis's conduct. The scene in the courtroom, which had been filled with tension and hostility, became one of stunning revelation. With Davis taken into custody and his corruption laid bare, the court was left in shocked silence. JD Vance's quiet courage and commitment to truth had dismantled an entire web of corruption, showing that even in the face of power, integrity would always win. In the end, it was not only the judge who was held accountable, but the entire judicial system was forced to reckon with the abuses that had been allowed to fester for far too long. JD Vance's actions served as a powerful reminder that no one, no matter their position, is above the law, and justice must always prevail. In a dramatic courtroom showdown, JD Vance's calm, measured response to a corrupt federal judge, Marshall Davis, revealed the depth of judicial bias and corruption in the legal system. The judge, known for his hostile and erratic behavior, attempted to use his position to humiliate Vance and suppress key evidence. But Vance's unshakable poise and determination ultimately exposed the judge's abuses of power. The day began as any typical court session might, with Davis already showing signs of his notorious bad temper. He barked orders at his staff, bullied his colleagues, and made it clear that his courtroom was to be run according to his whims, not the law. Davis had long been known for his biases, especially when it came to conservative figures, and on this day, he was about to face a challenge he wasn't prepared for. When JD Vance, the vice president, entered the courtroom to testify as a witness, Davis immediately targeted him with dismissive comments and derisive remarks. He attempted to belittle Vance, suggesting his political position meant nothing in the courtroom. But Vance remained unfazed and maintained his composure. The judge's increasingly erratic behavior escalated as the proceedings continued. Davis constantly interrupted Vance, mocked his testimony, and even disregarded key evidence that was presented in the case. But Vance, firm in his resolve to speak the truth, continued to present the facts calmly, without backing down to the judge's tactics. As Davis grew more agitated, he began making personal attacks, accusing Vance of using his political connections to sway the case. This only fueled Vance's determination to ensure that justice would be served. The pivotal moment came when Vance, with quiet authority, introduced crucial documents and evidence that pointed to a troubling pattern of corruption by Judge Davis. He revealed records of offshore payments linked to Davis and directly tied to his biased rulings against conservative defendants. As Vance continued to ask questions and push for accountability, Davis's panic became evident. His previously unshakable control began to crumble as his personal biases were exposed. The judge's attempts to silence Vance and dismiss the evidence became more frantic, but Vance stood firm, refusing to let Davis evade accountability. In a stunning turn, Vance presented more incriminating evidence, exposing the judge's illegal activities, and at that moment, federal agents arrived, signaling the beginning of an official investigation into Davis's conduct. The judge, realizing the full extent of his exposure, lashed out, accusing Vance of fabricating the evidence. But it was clear to everyone in the courtroom, Davis had lost all credibility. The courtroom fell silent as Judge Davis was escorted away in handcuffs, his reputation destroyed. Vance's composure, integrity, and dedication to justice had led to the unraveling of a corrupt judicial system. His quiet strength in the face of overwhelming opposition was a powerful reminder that no one is above the law, and the pursuit of truth and accountability is always worth fighting for. JD Vance's actions proved that even in the face of power, justice would ultimately prevail. At a prestigious charity gala in New York, Barron Trump found himself witnessing a young social media influencer target Hollywood legend Clint Eastwood with sharp, mocking remarks. The influencer, known for seeking viral moments, believed she could humiliate the 93-year-old actor for some quick attention. But little did she know, her attempt to belittle Eastwood would lead to a powerful intervention by Barron Trump that not only shut down her disrespectful comments, but also sparked a broader conversation about respect, legacy, and the real meaning of influence. The evening began like any other, with high-profile figures mingling, but when Barron Trump entered the scene, his calm and composed demeanor contrasted sharply with the influencer's aggressive quest for online fame. While Clint Eastwood stood near the center of the room, embodying the quiet dignity of Hollywood's golden era, the influencer, eager to draw attention, saw him as an easy target. With her phone raised high, she began mocking Eastwood, calling him an ancient relic and questioning why anyone still bothered inviting him to events. Her followers quickly joined in, flooding her live stream with laughing emojis and comments, thrilled by her inflammatory commentary. Eastwood, however, remained unflinching, his expression unmoved by the online attack. This only seemed to encourage the influencer to continue her performance, suggesting that Eastwood's age and old-fashioned values made him irrelevant in today's world. She even mocked the idea that he might not understand modern platforms like TikTok. But Barron Trump, observing this attack with growing discomfort, couldn't remain silent. He stepped forward and quietly interrupted her, calmly asserting that she was disrespecting a man who had helped shape the very industry that had given her a platform to mock him. Barron's intervention was measured but firm. He challenged the influencer's shallow understanding of influence and legacy, pointing out that Clint Eastwood's work in Hollywood went far beyond acting in cowboy movies. Eastwood, he explained, revolutionized the film industry by taking risks and telling complex, meaningful stories that pushed boundaries, long before social media ever existed. While the influencer posted for likes, Eastwood was out there making real change. Barron's words, delivered with remarkable clarity, started to shift the mood in the room. The influencer tried to defend herself, but couldn't muster a strong response. Barron pointed out the glaring difference between their approaches. While she focused on viral moments, Eastwood focused on creating stories that lasted, shaping culture in ways she couldn't even fathom. The crowd, initially watching the drama unfold with some amusement, began to see Barron's point. His calm, yet powerful stance made it clear that real influence wasn't measured in likes or followers, but in the lasting impact you had on the world. In a final moment of clarity, Barron turned the conversation back to Clint Eastwood, emphasizing that real influence is about substance, not surface-level controversy. He reminded the influencer that the very platform she used to tear down others existed because people like Eastwood had fought for creative freedom long before she was born. The silence in the room was deafening as Barron's words landed, and the influencer, once so confident, stood speechless. The exchange went viral almost immediately, spreading across social media. Barron's defense of Clint Eastwood became a cultural moment, reminding millions of the value of respect, legacy, and true influence. It sparked conversations about how the younger generation perceives the past and how we often fail to appreciate the giants who laid the foundation for the opportunities we now take for granted. By the end of the night, the influencer had been publicly humbled, and Clint Eastwood's legacy stood stronger than ever, not because of viral posts, but because of the enduring power of respect, hard work, and true artistry. The exchange between Barron Trump and the influencer at the charity gala offers a powerful lesson about the value of respect, legacy, and the true meaning of influence. In today's fast-paced world of social media, it's easy to fall into the trap of seeking attention through viral moments or empty words. However, true greatness is not defined by the number of likes or followers one accumulates, but by the lasting impact one makes on the world. Clint Eastwood's career, built on decades of dedication to storytelling and pushing boundaries, serves as a reminder that real influence is about substance and integrity, not surface-level fame. Similarly, Barron Trump's response teaches us that standing up for what's right, defending those who are unjustly mocked, and recognizing the wisdom of the older generation are vital actions in preserving respect for legacy and values. As we age, it's easy to feel forgotten in a world obsessed with the new, but our worth is not measured by trends or the fleeting approval of others. Instead, it's found in the way we touch lives, the knowledge we pass on, and the quiet dignity we carry through challenges. The lesson here is that we should strive to make a positive, lasting difference in the lives of others, regardless of the noise around us. True fulfillment comes not from chasing attention, but from living with integrity and honoring the principles that stand the test of time. Thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe to Stories TH channel to stay updated with the latest videos. See you in the next video.